Hey again, everyone. Great to see you here tonight at the Voice of College Football. Welcome into another call-in show. My very favorite thing to do here. You all know that. That means take advantage. 860-499-3332. I will post the number to the bottom ticker here in just a second. Again, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Great to see everybody here tonight. Thank you so much for staying flexible, as I originally had scheduled this for 9:30 tonight and moved it up to 8:45. So great to see all of you on the line. We will get to your comments and questions as we always do. And again, the call-in line will be open here and is right now 860-499-3332. Before I display that, let me remind everybody down below that you shop Amazon, and when you do, please use the link in the description section of any of the videos. Any of the videos, you go to the description section underneath the video, and where it says Amazon in big caps, just grab that link, put it somewhere where you'll remember it, and please do your Amazon shopping using that link. It's the same exact shopping experience, doesn't cost you a penny, and you help us grow the channel. Which reminds me, in the coming days, I will be either producing a video or I will come on live and talk about the vision for the channel, for the platform, for the website, for the entire Voice of College Football platform. And we will discuss that either live or I will post a video, because the times that I've done this in the past live, I definitely get derailed by the calls and the comments, and we end up talking college football for 2 or 3 hours instead of talking about the channel vision. But we will get to that soon. All right, we got a call coming in, so let's get right to it. As I will be displaying the 247 Sports preseason 1 through 130 rankings here in just a minute. We'll go through those team by team. Ballard Sports is on the line. How you doing tonight?
Hey, what's up, Mark? How you doing? I'm great.
I am doing great as well. What's going on tonight?
Not much. I wanted to talk some college football, obviously, and I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the. I know everyone keeps talking about Georgia, Clemson, Bama, Miami, and there's a lot of great games like within the first week of the season or whatever to look forward to. But, as college football fans, I think we can all agree one of the best weekends is on Thanksgiving weekend when it's rivalry time. Ohio State and Michigan, the Iron Bowl. It'll be great to see that it's not conference only this year. We get like Georgia Tech back. We get the Palmetto Bowl with Clemson, South Carolina. I'm curious what rivalries that weekend. I mean, I know it's too early to tell. We still got a whole season to play, but as of right now, what are some interesting rivalries at this point that you'll keep an eye on, I guess, when that weekend rolls around at this moment?
Well, if we're talking about the national scene or talking about championships and not just talking about the rivalry and the most heated rivalry, most intense rivalry, but talking about which games are going to matter across the board, nationally, obviously some of the great rivalries are also played at other points of the calendar. Right. Oklahoma, Texas comes to mind in particular. USC, UCLA has typically been the last game of the season for both of those teams, unless there are some quirks in the schedule involving Notre Dame scheduling with USC. So I don't believe that they're playing the final game of the season, but I think with UCLA showing a little bit of life last year, and USC, of course, is multi-talented, although they're having their issues, that's going to be an intriguing division race with USC, UCLA. Arizona State will push the allegations and all the issues aside because they probably won't affect them this year, probably. And then Utah as well. So I think that division is going to be bunched up and very entertaining. So USC, UCLA, in terms of a rivalry game, comes up for me. I would like to see Clemson and South Carolina once again become a series of that's a heated, competitive game on the field. It's almost inconceivable at this point that just a few years ago, it wasn't that long ago that South Carolina was dominating that series. They had won 5 consecutive games under Steve Spurrier through 2014, correct? 2013 or 14, I believe 2014, before Clemson, of course, has taken it over, and it's not even close now. But in terms of, every time I look to one of the traditional rivalries, I think we pretty much see one team is dominant right now. Even though Auburn's been pretty successful against Alabama, Alabama's obviously the much more dominant program right now over Auburn. Florida over Florida State. They've won 2 consecutive just completely blowout games, and Florida State's reeling. Georgia Tech is not close at this point and typically hasn't been for most of the part. We touched upon Clemson, South Carolina. Texas, despite disappointing elsewhere in the Big 12, has been competitive on the field with Oklahoma. That's been a 1-score game, I think, for 8 or 9 consecutive years. We know the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. Here's one for the final game of the season. I believe this is a game that's been played at different points throughout the season, but I think most people would generally consider Minnesota to be Wisconsin's arch rival and arch rival, vice versa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and they play for the final game of the season, and maybe that will determine a division championship as well. But those are really, if we look at that championship weekend, that rivalry weekend, those are the games that come to mind. North Carolina, NC State might prove to be a pretty important game as well.
I think, and forget about like the actual rivalry weekend itself. I mean, that's when all the big ones happen. You got the game, the Iron Bowl. Obviously, this will be year 2. It'll be interesting with take the Egg Bowl with Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin. What's that going to look like? Ole Miss should be pretty good this year. But I mean, there's rivalries even outside of the last weekend in November. I mean, you got one of my favorites is the Red River shootout rivalry, whatever showdown you want to call it, with Texas and Oklahoma. It'll be interesting just in general for Texas this year. What is Sarkisian, after what he did with Bama last year, how does he, really have much of an impact on, what the program's going to become? And it'll definitely be an early test for what he wants to do with Texas when he has to play Lincoln Riley this year. That'll be really fun.
Ballard, I found it interesting what the conferences themselves tell us by the scheduling that they enact, meaning that in the Big Ten, when Maryland and Rutgers joined the Big Ten in 2014, they pinned them up against each other the final weekend of the season, probably hoping that would be a rivalry. But I think at one point they determined, okay, they're both considered still kind of the outsiders, so we don't want them playing each other. And they mixed that up. Similarly, Iowa and Nebraska, when Nebraska joined the Big Ten immediately made that a Friday after Thanksgiving game because it was always going to be on ABC. It was going to be set apart on a Friday and played. As you well know, in the SEC for years and years and years, LSU and Arkansas was the huge game on the Friday after Thanksgiving. And now the SEC with Texas A&M coming in, they wanted to kind of move things in regards to establishing a rivalry there and thought, okay, Missouri needs somebody to play to kind of ingrain them in the SEC. So let's give them Arkansas and switch it up and go LSU and Texas A&M. And as you well know, again, Texas A&M and LSU, even though they were not conference rivals, have played a number of games. They've got a long, long series outside the conference. And so that one comes to mind as well. If one of those, and it's a huge if one of them can pull off the upset against Alabama and take control of the division, how big is that game going to be, LSU and Texas A&M?
Oh, especially, I mean, and of course, we know about the comments Jimbo made weeks back about how, and it was hilarious to hear Saban say, and what, golf? But yeah, I mean, imagine if, imagine how great that would be, if A&M did something huge and ran the table. And like you said, I mean, late in the season, the impact of maybe a game like LSU or whatever, it'll just be interesting to see. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. that I had for you. I know we haven't even started the season, but rivalry weekend's definitely the best weekend in college football, because that's when you get all the main ones, Ohio State, Michigan, and all that. But even throughout the season, even early on, you get a lot of great ones, like we mentioned, Texas and Oklahoma. And I wanted to call up and just say something. And I'm mainly happy that this season will be out of conference games. I think we can all agree there.
Absolutely. Those were missed last year, and there are a ton of great ones. I just recorded some segments that I'm going to post going through a ton of week one matchups, and a lot of them not necessarily marquee matchups, but still games that I want to see, games that I'm interested in. There's a number of group of 5 teams that should be pretty strong this year that will give possibly a scare to some Power 5 teams. Texas, Louisiana, that game in week 1 comes to mind, of course.
Yeah.
Ballard, do you think at all, as an Alabama fan, that you've got much to worry about in week 1 against Miami?
Oh, absolutely. I've been saying that. I think, this season I kind of make jokes like I'll mess around, because I know you got a lot of, and I love all the people you get on, the Scoop on the U people, Wholesome Holloway, all the Miami people. They're great people, but they're a great program too. But man, it just seems like this might be the year. This might be the year. Listen, if they beat Alabama week 1, which I know a lot of people. Here's my problem: is a lot of people are saying Bama's just going to blow through them, and as a Bama fan, I'd like to see that, but I feel like Miami's not getting enough credit. I really think that they're going to be a good team this year, and especially if they pull an upset week 1, they could imagine what they could do from there. But am I worried about Miami? Of course. This isn't like when we played Duke a few years ago. This isn't like a week 2 game against the FCS school. This is against I don't know if I want to say Miami's top 10. I guess they kind of are top 10, top 15 type of team. Whether they're ranked there or not, I still view them nationally like that. So, yeah, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, and I think we're all anxious to see Bryce Young and see what he can do in his first start.
Yeah, and especially under a new coordinator with Bill O'Brien coming in.
Absolutely. All right, Ballard. Anything else?
Yes, sir. No, just keep up all the great content you guys do. I've been sharing it out on the social media a few times, and I'm ready for the season, man. Roll Tide.
I appreciate the support, Ballard. You have a good night. Thanks for the call.
You too. Thank you.
Our man Ballard Sports Media calling up Alabama taking on Miami, of course, in Atlanta week 1. Keep in mind that Nick Saban, since he arrived in 2007, let's pick it up from 2008. I don't know exactly who Alabama played that first season in 2007 as a non-conference game, but basically Saban has taken on top flight programs across the board in neutral site games, except for a Penn State home and home series in 2010 and 2011, in which Alabama took care of Penn State by 2 to 3 scores each one of those games, 27-11 and I think 24-3. All the other games have been neutral site games, played in Atlanta or played in Houston or played in Dallas. And Alabama has not been threatened at all. I would say Wisconsin may have played them the best. I think that game was 21-17 sometime in the third quarter, but Alabama kicked it into gear and blew them out 35-17. That was in 2015. The Florida State game, if you watched the game, you could see that Florida State athletically could basically match up with Alabama, but of course DeAndre Francois was lost when it was a 10-7 game, and Alabama took it from there 24-7. Those were probably the two games. Also, West Virginia actually with Clint Trickett at quarterback in 2014, put up a pretty good fight and threw for a ton of yardage. Clint Trickett threw for over 500 yards in that game against Alabama. I believe that game was played in Atlanta and put a scare in the Tide, something like 35-26. You could check my score on there. But Alabama's beaten Clemson, Virginia Tech, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida State, Duke, Louisville, USC, West Virginia. On and on the teams that they've beaten. They're 9-0 in those neutral site games to open the season. All right. Another caller coming in here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Mark, this is Navy Thomas, buddy.
There he is. Navy Thomas. How you doing?
Hey, I just wanted to bring to you, I love everything that you've been doing lately that I keep watching every day. It's like, give me a new one, give me a new one, give me a new one. And you've been doing it. But the one thing I keep trying to point at, not at you, but at the attention of this, what was it called? The Torpal Portal Escape Bail Away. You were doing quarterbacks and running backs.
My top 25 rankings. My top 25 rankings.
Yeah, that was the last one I saw, but I couldn't remember if it was running backs or fullbacks.
I did the running backs
bring up that,
and the quarterbacks.
You didn't bring up that that running back that went from last year from Nebraska to Kentucky.
Wan'Dale Robinson.
And that, and that quarterback from Nebraska that went to Louisville, and he didn't even play a year, and now he's going to Rice. The only thing I want to bring up for everybody else that's watching and paying attention to what's going on, this Torpal thing, this crap has got to end. And then I saw some of this the 9 judges, Supreme Court, they're going after student athletes, and they're sponsoring them. So I'm thinking, does that mean they're going to start supporting payment for the A&E, PlayStations, Xbox, all those games? I'm just like, man, I just kind of slap my head left and right of all this stupid stuff that keeps happening. And I love bringing it up to you and see where you go, my friend.
All right. You're talking about name, image, and likeness. So we're going to be allowing the athletes to profit from their performance on the field. So
collecting incoming money.
They're going to be able to make money, name, image, and likeness, meaning that if their name, their image, a picture of them, a likeness of them is going to go on a jersey, on a banner, on any kind of memorabilia, autographs, on a PlayStation game like you just mentioned, then they will profit from that. Now, that may not necessarily happen right out of the gate where all of it's wide open for them to profit from, but that's where we're headed, and that has been approved, and that is going to take place. In what way, in what manner, in what form, and how much money they're going to get from that, if it's 1%, 40%, whatever it is, we don't know the details or the specifics right now. We just know that is going to happen. It's already in the works.
I just totally agree with your discussion about it. I'm just beating myself on each side of my head going, why do we have to keep listening to this? And It just keeps continuing. And then the only thing that didn't come up with it was the Section 9 or I can't even remember what it's called, man. I'm struggling with my brain stroke. Just
Title 9.
Sectional 9.
So you're talking about
Title 9,
female
thank you.
athletes. Yes. Basically, the decision that
And
was
it's
made.
happening for the women, too.
Yeah, basically, the decision was made years and years ago that there would be just as many scholarship positions allotted for women as men on each college campus.
So I try to read this Supreme Court thing, and I'm just like, okay, so they're covering student athletes, but they don't cover their sectional 9 or whatever you called it. I'm just like, how pathetic all this stuff is. So
Well, Tom, the thing to consider
that's all
there.
right.
The thing to consider there is that if they don't make money in particular sports, then there's no money to give to the athletes or pay the athletes. So the athletes are going to have to make money. There's going to have to be money generated, meaning only revenue generating sports, the athletes in those sports are going to benefit. So if you play lacrosse, if you can't earn $1 from playing lacrosse, then those athletes aren't going to make any money.
Exactly. Prove a point. Lacrosse doesn't matter anything, but women basketball or volleyball or whatever, that doesn't go to the oh man. See where I just, when I try to read this and I try to understand what the hell's going on, it doesn't make any sense to me. All right, my friend, go ahead, go back to the football because nothing's going to get fixed.
So Tom, what I took from that,
later, man.
what I took from that is you want me to continue to go through college football playoffs, and you want me to rank the players, and you want me to apply the playoff system to previous seasons like I've been doing.
My whole thing about that is the 12 teams, and I'm like, why 12? Either go 16 or go to 8.
Bingo.
And you look at the schedule for 12, 8 or 16. This 12 thing is flat out stupid, but hey, that's just me.
You're singing my song, Tom.
I go along with you, man.
All right. I love it.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Appreciate the call. Have a good one, Tom.
All right, buddy. Bye.
I say this from time to time. I believe Navy Thomas is our longest acting viewer. A couple months ago, I went to all the subscribers list, and I went back to the origin, the very beginning of the subscriber list, which would be the first person there would be the first person that ever subscribed who was still with us, who was still a subscriber. I did not recognize that person's name. I had to go, I don't know how many dozen people before I recognized somebody who comments. And the first person that I can remember coming across, and the guy that has been with me the longest, I believe, in terms of not just watching, but also calling up and talking to me on a regular basis and supporting would be Navy Thomas. All right, 860-499-3332. I'm going to take this call. I was just about to go to the 247 Sports 1 through 130 rankings. We will get to that in just a second. Let's take this call. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Mike 383.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, I called a while ago. It's been a while, and I believe I mentioned something about picking the 6 best conferences.
Yes.
And I wanted to kind of circle back around that. Have you given a second thought?
Well, what do you want me to comment on?
I guess I was just kind of humble bragging there, being a hipster, mentioning it before the playoff committee and all of them were talking about it. I can't brag too much because I definitely don't have the same amount of knowledge that you have on college football.
So basically, you're in favor of the top 6 conference champions making, excuse me, the playoff.
But except with no buys, like the last caller said, either make it 8 or 16. But I do like the conference concept. Yeah.
You're singing my song, Mike. You're preaching to the choir here. No buys. No buys. None.
But if they implemented your schedule format, how would you feel about a 6 conference and then 2 best after everyone's played like an equal schedule?
Oh, of having the buys?
No, 8 teams, 6 best conferences, and then everyone plays everybody sort of schedule.
Well, I would be a happy man because that would be my format that they would be implementing. Absolutely. Implement the schedule, then implement the 8-team playoff or the 16. I can go either way. I've got an 8-team and a 16-team that I think both work.
All right. I was curious who you had ranked at 97, by the way. I need to know who it is. Are you ranking the top?
I saw that.
Every team.
97. Well, a few months ago, you may recall, I ranked all the programs 1 through 130. What we were going to review tonight is I saw that 247 Sports, they ranked the 1 through 130. So that would be their number 97. And we can certainly pull that up to save everyone the suspense to make sure that number 97 is the team we need it to be. But let's see, 97. Let's see, number 97. Trying to find it right here would be they on the list there. Got Georgia State at 95. Let's see, 97. About Western Kentucky, Mike. How's that for you?
No, Western Kentucky.
Good old Western Kentucky.
I suppose that's fine. Well, I'll see you.
All right, Mike. Have a good one.
You too.
If we get enough decent calls, then we don't have to talk about 247 Sports 1 through 130 rankings. I just look for a topic every night that I do a call-in show. I just want to present some kind of topic to get things started. But if you've got better things to talk about, certainly 247 Sports 1 through 130 rankings. They're not the voice of college football 1 through 130 rankings, are they? So are they really worth talking about? All right, here we go. Welcome to the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Yes, my name is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
How's it going, sir? Yeah, I had sent a couple of questions, and my apologies in advance if I didn't get the memo on this. But so with the new playoff format proposal, the 12-team format proposal, if it's approved and everything, when is it supposed to be implemented?
It would not be implemented this season or in 2022. The earliest that it would be implemented would be 23.
Oh, is that when the current contract expires?
No, the contract runs through
2026.
I think 25, 26 that season, but the contract can be renegotiated.
Okay, so the earliest is 2023. And my other question was, just out of curiosity, I know Jake Herbstreit, one of the twins on the Clemson roster. He was the defensive back. He was actually the safety on the roster. I know he's no longer on the roster. Do you know if he's transferring anywhere? Any information if he's transferring somewhere or not playing football anymore? Period.
I will have to hit up one of my Clemson guys to find that out. I don't know that. I don't have any information regarding his status and why he's not currently listed on the roster. When was that roster released?
Actually, it was updated after the spring game.
Okay.
He played in the spring game. Again, he's number 37 on the roster. He's a safety. He played in the spring game, but subsequent to the spring game, he's no longer listed on the roster at all. But his brother still is. But I also wonder, because of the Herbstreit's friendship with the Tennessee State head coach, I wonder if maybe he might be transferring there. But that's just nothing concrete on that. I just wonder if that could have happened as well. To Eddie George's new team, I wonder if he might be transferring there. He would be eligible immediately because it's an FCS program.
Sure. I've got to think that with everything that's online, that somebody has addressed this. I've got to think that information is out there. I just Googled it myself, and I'm not finding anything here because he is actually still on the Clemson Tigers website.
Yes, sir. Yeah, on the website, he's listed on the website, but on the official roster, on the official team website, he's no longer listed there. He didn't change numbers. I checked the roster, but I don't know why I care about this. But I was just wondering out of just my own curiosity if he may be transferring.
Yeah, I think his transfer is not necessarily going to affect the ACC championship race, but there's an article here from TigerNet on March 30th. Of course, that was before the end of spring. They had a very early spring practice, so this might have been at the end of spring camp where they were still publishing an article talking about him being a perfect fit at Clemson. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I wonder, and I wonder if you can answer this, sir, is I wonder if you're a walk-on player, a non-scholarship player, you're not eligible to enter the transfer portal, correct? Only scholarship players are only eligible to enter the transfer portal.
That's a great question. I haven't heard anybody address that. I've not heard any conversation about that or anybody raise that issue in all my conversations about the transfer portal. That's not come up.
Now, I was just wondering about that. If you're a walk-on, can necessarily. I know, like people in the past, like who won the Heisman for Oklahoma. He played for Texas Tech and also for Oklahoma. Now he's with the Browns. I know he was a walk-on that transferred, but that was before the transfer portal was implemented. But I kind of wonder if that's the process you have to go through to transfer to another school, regardless if you're a walk-on or a scholarship player to enter the transfer portal. That's what I was just wondering.
There's a post from Board Games Tips, whatever that is. Do walk-ons have to enter the transfer portal? Can a walk-on transfer? How the transfer portal turns some scholarship players? Yeah, there's all sorts of information. I don't think there's anything definitive about that. Virginia Tech sportswar.com says, that's just a fan site, a bunch of people's opinions. So couldn't tell you for sure. Okay,
sir.
With the analysis we do here and everything we deal with, it's just probably going to be very rare that any walk-on player is of the caliber that we would need to discuss them entering or transferring through the portal.
Yes, sir. No, I definitely appreciate taking my call. I appreciate everything. I love your show, and I look forward to hearing the other callers. Thanks, and thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I know quite a bit about college football. I certainly don't know anything close to everything. That is for sure. So, especially technicalities about rules that have only been around for a little while. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hey, Hunter. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you tonight?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Good. Good. In your not necessarily in your top 100 or whatever, where do you, in your mind, where do you think that Florida State sits right now?
Okay, so the 1 through 130 that I released a couple months ago was a bit different than the 1 through 130 that 247 Sports and a few other people have released, in that I was ranking programs. So I was not ranking the 2021 team. So that's somewhat different. The Florida State football team for 2021 is pretty bad. I would rank them in the 55 to 60 range in the country off the top of my head. I would have to go through the entire country and rank everybody to know whether that 55 to 60 is going to be completely accurate. But I think you've got an idea. If you look at what they did last year, they couldn't really do anything well. They did a few things average. They had a really good cornerback. He went to the NFL. They had very talented defensive tackle. He underachieved. He went to the NFL. They have a couple guys on defense like Joshua Kando, Amari Gaynor, who are really dynamic players, but they've only got a couple of those guys. Their offensive line is one of the worst in the conference. They don't have any dynamic playmakers that have proven anything yet. They've got a quarterback who, if he's as good as he was before he got injured, will be one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the country. So that would be a huge plus, but he's got to prove that he's still that guy and that they can protect him for the entire season. I think their running back position is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. They don't have one dynamic, tremendous back, but they've got 3 or 4 guys that are pretty good. They've got a very average football team that, against their schedule, which is the toughest in the ACC, is going to be very difficult to gain many wins. I think they're probably going to win 5 games this year.
Well, my thing, Mark, is if you look at it, and maybe we have a difference of opinion here, but I think that there is a lot of talent on that team. And I just don't know what it's going to take from Norvell to bring that out. I mean, they recruited, under him last year pretty decently.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger, recruited decent. So I think there's more there than what people might give credit to. It's just they haven't been able to produce any fruit of that.
I absolutely agree with you. So just to finish my point and actually respond to your point, if you just look at recruiting rankings, they're much better than what I just explained. I was just basing that on what we've seen 2018, 19, and 20. Now, 3 consecutive seasons, what we've seen on the field. You're talking about the recruiting rankings, which you're right. They've recruited much better than what they've shown on the field. They have top 25 type talent on the field, if you believe in the recruiting rankings, which I generally do. They should be better than that. Although they've had a number of those guys leave the program. They've had a few guys that have helped that recruiting ranking being what it is. They have had some defections that have hurt.
Well, I think not Norvell. Tiger damaged the culture there, in my opinion. I think he damaged the Florida State culture as to what it was when Jimbo was there. And so I think that was diminished a little bit, and I think Norvell is not having to rebuild that culture. So it's going to take some time, and I think after this season, we should see a lot better Florida State football team. One more question for you. The West Virginia head coach coached at Troy University, which is about an hour and a half from me. So
Sure.
I'm pretty familiar with that program. Where do you see where he is taking that West Virginia program, and what is your assessment of his job so far while being at West Virginia?
My assessment of the job that he's doing is that he's a really good fit for that program, and he's an excellent football coach. He took over a program from Dana Hogerson that on the surface appeared to be in good shape because they had just had a couple of nice seasons, but that was a bit overrated in that most of that came on the strength of a tremendous quarterback, Will Grier, and a couple NFL receivers, and they just had a tremendous passing attack. It was almost like a poor man's version of what Florida was last year. That carried that program for a couple of years with really bad defense and really not a great roster, but just a great quarterback, great college quarterback, and a few great receivers and running backs. They could catch the ball out of the backfield. They just had a prolific offense for a couple of years. So then Dana Hogerson leaves, and the cupboard was pretty bare. And Neil Brown, I think he's done an excellent job. They weren't really good 2 years ago. He had to have a rough first season, and I typically don't am not that critical of first year head coaches because I want to see, sometimes you got to get worse to get better, and I think that's partially true with what West Virginia did last year. They had the best pass defense in the country last year, and that's saying quite a bit considering the conference they play in. He was smart enough that he protected his quarterback in terms of play calling, that they were a very conservative offense, not so conservative not to be effective, but in a smart way. They relied on two really good running backs and didn't let Jared Dagey, their quarterback, throw it too often. They were very conservative and efficient. He threw 14 touchdowns and 4 picks off the top of my head. And so I think Neil Brown's doing a very nice job at West Virginia.
Do you think that he can get them? Do you think he could get them to be in the not? I don't know if he could get them into the playoff conversation eventually. I don't know if that. I don't know. But do you think that he can bring them to a lot better, at least being in the national conversation? With his track record of being at Troy and now there, I think he can.
I think it would be difficult for them to do that and maintain it year after year after year. But on a given year, with a right schedule and almost like a Northwestern where they cycle up, where they have a very senior laden team and they catch some breaks, and before you know it, they're 10-2. Yeah, I would be interested to look at his roster to see where he's, and maybe even more so a year or two from now, to see where he's getting his players. That's always been a problem at West Virginia. They would have to go to Ohio and Pennsylvania because they just don't have a large population in the state or a very good football playing state. And before anybody from West Virginia jumps on me, I mean from a volume standpoint, I would think that they would go to Kentucky and get players in Virginia. So they have a decent region to pull players, and they don't really have to compete against their conference for players. So I do think that Neil Brown, of course, he did a great job at Troy, beat LSU and won 10 games there before he left. I think he's a really good football coach.
Yeah, well, he just landed a big commitment from a 4-star quarterback. and for the next year cycle. So, I mean, he's showing good things there, in West Virginia. I thought that West Virginia team that had Will Greer a few years ago, that was a very interesting team that year. And, yeah, it's kind of fun to see those teams that you don't typically think of being in that conversation, to be in the conversation, like a Northwestern, like a West Virginia. So I hope that that he builds on this and maybe he gets a bigger job down the road.
That team that you mentioned played Oklahoma on the final day of the season for the Big 12 championship berth, and they came within a strip sack of winning the Big 12 championship. They lost like 58-56 on a strip sack for a touchdown. Yeah, they were that close.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for your show. It's one of the better ones out there, and I always enjoy hearing your perspective on things.
I appreciate that, Hunter. Thanks for the call. We always look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We had Ballard, Alabama fan. Hunter, Alabama fan. We had Steve. Don't know who he roots for, but I believe that's the first time he's called the show. So it's always good to hear from first-time callers. Continue to bear with me a little bit tonight. I'm still have all that congestion working. So like I say about 3 words and then I've got to stop. So I got a couple questions here. Let's see. College football addict. Mark, would you agree that this is the worst 20-year stretch in Michigan history? I'm arguing with someone. The worst 20-year history, 20 years period in Michigan football history. So I'm going to let you know that anything pre about 1960 with Michigan, I'm not going to be able to speak to. So if they had some kind of slice of 20 years back before 1960, then I'm unaware of, which I don't think they did. That was that poor, because they did win a national championship in 1948. That was Michigan's last consensus national championship, 1948. So we're talking about 2001 to 2021, roughly. Well, Bo Schembechler took over in 1969. And that was more than 50 years ago. And certainly the last 20 years of Michigan football is by far worse than any chunk of time after 1969. That's not even comparable. If you want to go through records, that's simple to do. And all you have to do is pull up this site. I love to go to this site because there was a point in time in which I could pretty much name any score in the last like 40 years of college football off the top of my head, but those days are long gone. I still remember a lot of them. I can give you most bowl game scores, major bowl games, anything from the Outback or the Citrus on up, something in that range. But, Michigan football, I know that Bo Schembechler, he was there for 21 years, and they were in the top 10 almost every year. He was there almost every year. I think 16 of 21 years, Michigan finished in the top 10 with Bo Schembechler on the sidelines. And then they were really good with Gary Moeller. He had a great tenure. If he would have been able to stay on the straight and narrow in his personal life, he would have had a great stay at Michigan. He had a great run at Michigan. Then Lloyd Carr, of course, won a national championship. He had a nice run. And then since then, it's been awful for the most part. So, here in the 50s, I'm seeing some bad Michigan football. Not for long, though. In the late 50s, we see 2-6-1, 4-5, 5-4-1, 6-3, 2-7, 3-4-2. Don't you love these records? And then by 1964, they were back on top at 9-1. They went to the Rose Bowl. And 4-6, 6-4, 4-6, 6-2. So pretty bad going into the 60s, but not awful. And then, of course, that 1969-70 teams were good. Schembechler. So you're probably right there, college football addict. This would be the worst 20-year stretch of Michigan football. You're not going to find a 20-year stretch. I would love somebody to be able to do the calculations over the last 20 years of Michigan football. I'm going to say that their winning percentage is 56%. That's pretty marginal. 56%. They are a 7-5 team over the last 20 years. I should probably test my memory on the last 20 years. I think I could nail Michigan's records for the last 20 years. But if we cheat and look at it here, since 2000, 9-3, 8-4, 10-3, 10-3, 9-3, 7-5, 11-2, 9-4. That's the end of Lloyd Carr. Since then, 3-9, 5-7, 7-6, 11-2, 8-5, 7-6, 5-7. Jim Harbaugh 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4, 2-4. It's not been atrocious, but by Michigan standards, it's been atrocious. They're a just better than 500 program the last 20 years. So I think you're going to win that argument, college football addict. I think I messed up. Hang on just a second. Let me make sure to get back in our call-in studio. I think hopefully I've not shut our line down here. Uh-oh. I think I forgot to open a tab there. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're good. We are good. 860-499-3332. Disaster has been averted. Cheryl, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, I think the battle for JTT has come down to Ohio State and Alabama. I would be pretty surprised if he didn't go to one of those two schools. Ohio State has been in the lead the entire time, but don't look past Nick Saban. We all know better than that. College football addict. Mark, approximately where do you have Michigan? Michigan's got a difficult schedule. Michigan's a pretty talented football team with a lot of dysfunction. Michigan's coaching staff has a lot to prove. They've got a new defensive coordinator in Mike McDonald coming in from the Ravens. He's going to implement a 3-4 defense. The secondary was in shambles last year. The front seven's pretty good. Pretty good. Not great. Pretty good. The defensive line should be the strength of the team. The offensive line's decent. I really like Hassan Haskins at running back. Of course, the quarterback position is going to be crucial. So they're either going to play it safe with Alan Bowman. Cade McNamara is a gamer. Had a really good game in that 21-point comeback against Rutgers, but I think too many people have looked back fondly to that. That was a great night that Michigan was able to come back and avert disaster against Rutgers. Wow. Like, we should be impressed with that. But maybe Cade McNamara has gained a little bit too much cachet on that performance. He got off to a bad start against Penn State before he was hurt. J.J. McCaffrey is probably not ready. Michigan should probably go 7-5, which would be 5-4 in the Big Ten, and most likely they lose a close game against Washington at home in the non-conference. That's what I'm thinking right now. Only a few days, George tells us, until college football starts. Number one Indy fan is here. Yes, number one Indy fan. Now we've got a situation, if we get to these 12 teams, where Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State can lose twice and still make the playoff. And other teams. All right, I can tell that number one Indy fan is not a fan of playoff expansion. Raheem, good to see you. Christopher, kick the habit. Navy Thomas, I've never seen somebody so adamantly against the 3-4 defense than Navy Thomas. All right, we want calls. Let's take some calls. That'll keep me from going through the 247 Sports 1 through 130 rankings. Welcome to the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good.
Can you hear me?
How are you?
Can you hear? I'm good. Can you hear me good?
I got you good. You're loud and clear. Love it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at the gym. So I was looking at the Supreme Court case today. You know, they said that they shouldn't. It was okay for colleges to give extra accommodations for educational purposes.
Yes.
Or gifts or something like that. Am I correct? So I got a question for you from our conversation the other day. I looked it up. I know Texas has the most money for college football, and I might be wrong about this, but it's like $239 million they bring in a year. Is that correct? To the best of your knowledge.
I don't know what the number is. I know I've seen it. Yeah, I don't recall the number.
Okay. I heard somebody say they might bring in $1 billion. But anyway,
$1 billion.
We're to the point I'm about to make. Yeah, that's what I heard. But
Texas brings in $1 billion a year for football. I don't think it's $1 billion.
Yeah. Like I said, I saw 239 million. I think they were just making a joke about the Catholic Church in Notre Dame. Like, yeah, we're bringing more money than the Catholic Church. Anyway, back to what I was about to ask. So I looked at the annual tuition for Texas in-state tuition. Okay. So if you multiply that times 88 players, which is usually on a football team, it's about $2 million a year. So they bring in $239 million. That $2 million they spend on football players coming to their school, which is the biggest money maker, that's just a drop in the bucket. That's just amazing to me. And but I was looking it up, the numbers. What shocked me is that Clemson's not even in the top 20. South Carolina makes more money for football than Clemson does. Clemson is number 22, I think it was. But I was just shocked. And I know a lot of that's TV money and stuff like that. But I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about the Supreme Court decision?
Well,
Why do you think it's going to affect college football?
I have to be honest and tell you that I did not read an article on it. I saw it and knew I needed to get to it, but I have not read it. It doesn't surprise me that South Carolina's made more money than Clemson. I've seen the same thing. They belong to the SEC. The SEC money contract, the revenue from the contract on television is much larger than the ACC.
Right.
Well, the Supreme
Okay.
Court decision, again, I shouldn't probably comment on this until I've read at least one article on it. It only confirms where we were headed anyway. So I don't find it alarming or an issue in any way.
So do you think that it's going to help? Who do you think that is mostly going to help? I would think Carolina in a way because of Jordan and Nike, Oregon, but those schools was already pretty good. Texas, of course, Texas A&M. I wonder how would the rich get richer? Because East Carolina is not going to help very much because they're a smaller school. So I would wonder, do you think that we're going to see more of the have-nots, the haves and the have-nots, or do you think we're equal out the playing field? I know Duke, Vanderbilt, Rice, Wake Forest, and I don't know about Stanford, but I know those schools, it really is not going to help.
So I think what it's going to do is somewhat of what you just said, that it's going to expand the haves and it's going to give them a greater advantage. So the haves are going to become even greater and the have-nots are going to become even less. But in college football right now, from a playing standpoint, the haves and the have-nots are not necessarily the haves and the have-nots of the revenue. The haves on the playing field are only a few of the haves in revenue, as you just pointed out. Texas, in particular, USC, and others. I think that we may have, for the college football fan that wants to see a competitive sport on the field, I think this could be a good thing because it could bring these sleeping giants back into play.
Okay, well, yeah, because I could see like LA. So I think the top three money makers in college football at the time was Texas, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. Those were the three biggest. But then you look at Ohio State, they really don't have a market because of the shrinking size of their area. So I wonder how would that affect them. Let me think of another school. Clemson got Atlanta and Charlotte that it can draw from as far as marketing and stuff, but that's what I was looking at too. I would wonder how it's going to affect those. Like when you look at, like especially northern schools like Syracuse and Pitt, they were really good at one point in the 80s, 70s, and 90s, and they slowly have started a decline. So with that not being a big market, would that really help them? That's what I've been looking at. Northern schools with the population moving farther down south, how would that kill them? And I think that it's going to hurt them more than help them. So, all right, bro, you take care. But yeah, that's what I was looking at. That's what I was looking at.
I heard some comments from a USC commit the other day who did mention, when asked about being impressed by the location of USC and the name, image, and likeness potential, and that being not necessarily why he selected USC, but it was in the back of his mind. He did understand that he was going out to a place where there were a lot of opportunities in that direction.
Okay. Now, what do you think about the Arizona State issue with them taking their recruits during the dead period, them having them visit? Do you think that's going to kill Herm Edwards at the end of the day? Or?
So this is something else that I apologize that I don't know as much about that I should. But all I'm hearing is that they had official visits, or they wouldn't have been official. They had visits from student athletes. They brought them on campus during the dead period.
Right.
That's all there was to it, correct?
Right. And then who paid for it? That's another question.
So
they was asking. They're like, well, who paid for this shit?
I see really two issues with this. One being the advantage that they took over their competition in hosting athletes when nobody else was. So that's an obvious recruiting violation, just like a recruiting violation at any other time. We just saw one recently with Florida. When you contact athletes during times in which it is a dead period and you're not supposed to be contacting athletes, but they actually brought them, they actually spent money. They didn't just contact them. They spent money, and they knowingly, and they were just really just in blatant violation of the rules in bringing them on campus. The second would be the whole portion of the COVID violations and the safety aspect of it. I'm not so much concerned with that. That's not really high on my list, but I would think that the political and social climate being what it is, and that being a huge issue, that they're also violating safety guidelines through that time.
What's crazy is somebody notated and had pictures of all these athletes coming through. I'm like, who they saying ever that much that it would document all of that stuff going on? And I honestly believe with the movement of Phoenix is like the fourth fastest growing city. I think like in the next 10 years, you're going to see Arizona State and Arizona take off. But now with this, that might hurt Arizona State. You know, I know USC still out there and they're USC, but I mean, you still got to have, you know, not everybody's going to load up and go to USC. They got to go somewhere else. And that's, to me, that's going to be a future hotbed, is the Phoenix, Arizona area, and Las Vegas too. So, you know, you have a choice. I think Phoenix and that area is like 3 hours away from Las Vegas and, you know, LA, you know, and UCLA with their standards, it's going to be hard for them to collect on players. So I thought Arizona State in the next few years that they had the right coach. And I thought Arizona State was in that direction where they had the right coach and they were going to be pretty good in the next coming years. But we'll see how it works out. I saw your comment talking to what's my boy name? He does such a great job. I mean, is it Cam Underwood that got his own blog and writer? Is it you?
Cam Underwood, Miami, SB Nation guy.
So this is my issue, and I know that the kid that was at Clemson, Grace something, he transferred to Duke, then he transferred to App State. App State really has some really good teams, and they, you know, over the couple of years, they have been able to beat some good programs or upset them or play them close. Tennessee, Penn State, a couple other teams. Do you think Miami's consistent enough not to overlook App State at the beginning of the year after playing a big game against Alabama and not come out of that game like, dad, let Alabama beat them 2 weeks in a row? Wouldn't that be the question that we need to ask with Appalachian State being a history of giant killers?
I'm just thinking in the last few years to the last 10 years, we've seen a Virginia Tech team that was ranked in the top 10. We've seen an LSU team that eventually went, I believe, 10-3. We've seen a couple Texas teams. We've seen a number of teams of that status that have lost to good group of 5 teams. So I don't think Miami, I don't think that they're too good to look past Appalachian State.
Right. Cause I'm looking at, like, you think about, who they lost to Florida International a year or two ago?
Yes. Yes, they did. And they weren't even good. FIU.
Yeah, they lost to They lost to Georgia Tech the same year that Georgia Tech lost to the Citadel or Wofford or somebody.
True.
So
Citadel.
It's like, yeah. So it's kind of hard to predict them. You know, I don't have an issue with Miami. I can understand why their fans are so hyped by national championships. They always talk about it on ESPN, 20 for 20. They got 2 of them. And I can understand, you know, look at all this great surrounding talent. But, I mean, they're just so inconsistent over the last, 10 years. You know, you lose to Louisiana Tech and not even show up 14 to nothing. And I was watching some highlights of David Hester where, you know, Miami just murdered Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech shouldn't be able to play with Miami. And I'm not a big fan of Manny Diaz. So I really don't trust him to lead Miami back to the promised land. I think he's doing a good job of rebuilding their program, but I don't like this turnover chain, these touchdown rings. I'm like, why? You know, you're Miami. That's what Ted was, because, you know, you had Warren Sapp, you had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and John Taylor, and, you know, they didn't need no turnover chain and the stuff they used to do to those guys. So why you got to sell that? And I know people might say Alabama started it, but I haven't seen Alabama walk around with that championship belt in years. Like, let it go. Yeah, it was a good gimmick to get you some looks by some players, but sometimes you just got to let stuff go. And I think that's why people go at Miami so much.
The thing that cracks me up about the turnover chain is, okay, if you're going to celebrate something that's related to winning, I get it. But if you're celebrating a turnover, understand we can be watching them against Alabama. They could be losing 42-10 in the fourth quarter and get a turnover. And they're going to be parading around with a turnover chain and going crazy, and they're losing by 4 touchdowns. Are they going to do that? Have they done that?
The game, yes. Remember Clemson, the ACC championship game? They did it then. They be walking around with it. Even as they scored a touchdown a few years last year when Clemson beat them 42-17, you saw them, the media showing them out there with the rings on. I think Sean King had took off on a long run. And I'm like, why are you still showing it, man? You're losing the game. Should you really be celebrating? Yeah, good job, man. Way to fight and stay in it. But should you have some chain or what's the call it on there at the same time? That's what gets me. And don't get me wrong, I know Miami's a trendsetter and, you know, what they did in the 80s, the dancing and stuff like that. But sometimes you got to let some things go.
Well, I don't know.
Thing about Miami.
I don't know that it's a trend-setting program now. It was a trend-setting program. I don't know what they're doing now or have done in the recent past to be a trendsetter. But whether it's Miami, I'm not picking on Miami. Anybody that celebrates accomplishments on a football field that don't have anything to do with winning, I think is stupid.
Oh, yeah. And this is what I'm getting at, people. Let me tell y'all. November 26th is going to be the biggest game between North Carolina State and UNC at the end of the year. But I think both of them are going to beat Miami. I think State's going to be going to lose to Clemson, but they aren't going to have one loss going to that Carolina game. And I keep hearing like everybody talk about Miami's schedule after Alabama. They should be favorites. I know I done brought this up several times. You need to give that NC State team more of a look. So they got some talent that they done developed over the last couple of years. And I know their schedule is weak. It's coming up here outside of Mississippi State early, but if they get past Mississippi State and they only lose to Clemson, I think Clemson's the 4th game of the year. I don't see too many teams beating them on their schedule. And Carolina has a hard schedule. I think they got Notre Dame this year, don't they?
Yes.
Along with Miami. Yeah, so don't be surprised. That might be the biggest game. Because I don't think neither one of those teams have ever met while both of them have been in the top 15. I think they met a couple of times while they've been in the top I've been in the top 25, but I don't think they ever met when it comes to football in that matter. And this is going to be the first year. And that November 26th game is going to be a big one, especially if North Carolina's undefeated. The State going to come out and try to beat them. I'm not a State fan. I'm a Clemson fan, so I'm just telling y'all, just watch out for that game and don't be shocked if State beats Carolina. Last question, I'll let you go. What's up with Virginia Tech? What are your thoughts, and what are they looking like this year? I know they got the quarterback out of Oregon, but who else are they looking at being pretty good? The running back, I think they had a pretty good running back last year.
They do.
And a defensive tackle. Yeah. So you think they're going to be pretty good? So I haven't heard your guys.
Yeah, North Carolina, Virginia Tech has not recruited well. So their last couple of recruiting classes have been atrocious, near worst in the ACC. Right. So I'm not expecting a lot out of Virginia Tech. I think that their under is 7 or 7.5, which I was a bit surprised in. I think the program's headed in a bad direction currently. They're not recruiting well. They're under 500 the last 3 seasons.
Right. Well, see, what gets me is I know they came out of Memphis. And the thing about Memphis, I don't want to sound like they're not a good program, but Memphis has been when I was growing up, a joke. I know they had a good player here or there, Poe, D'Angelo Williams, and stuff like that. But I wonder who started that program, because Mike Norvell and the guy at Virginia Tech both came from Memphis, and both of them got new jobs off of that Memphis job. So I kind of wonder, is that because they're playing in a weak conference and they was able to manipulate the system enough to get enough good players to win that conference, or are they really good coaches? So it's going to be interesting to see what Mike Norvell and I can't think of the guy's name at Virginia Tech, because I think the guy at Virginia Tech is on his last leg, to be honest with you. And they got Carolina in the first game of the year, and I think that was the highest scoring game in ACC history last year. But I'm going to give other people a chance to talk, Mark. I'll get over with you later.
Thanks, DeAndre. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Well, based on what happened at Memphis, I would tend to give Justin Fuente more credit than Mike Norvell, because Justin Fuente actually built the program. You know, he took it from a 2 to 4 win program to the heights that they've enjoyed there at Memphis, as for one season was the best group of 5 team in the country. And Mike Norvell simply just took the reins and kept it going. Got David Greenshield on the line to talk some college football. David, how you doing tonight?
The man that gives college football its voice, the great Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, David. How are you?
Excellent. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you since the much talked about proposed 12-team college playoff.
Oh boy!
Kind of wanted to, I wanted to give you some of my thoughts and maybe exchange some thoughts on that. I think we both agreed in the past. I know you floated out the idea of a 16-team playoff out there before as a possibility, but again, I think we've both been the biggest proponents of an 8-team playoff. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because, I just want to say, just to circle back to my original thoughts on it, I just think that it fits the needs. And when it comes down to, you get the 5 conference winners, and I get that not all conference winners are created equal, but to a great degree, the Pac-12, if you look at it over the years, and the Pac-12 I know has not had a playoff team since 2016, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that Washington team that year. But, you look at it in the past, they're usually, in most years, get an 11-2 type football team to win that conference. I think in 17, USC, I believe, went 11-2. I think in Washington either lost 2 or 3 games in 18, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Mark?
Yeah, so to be specific, Washington was 10-3 after they won the Pac-12 championship game. So after they lost the Rose Bowl, they finished 10-4. There was actually a team in the conference that had a better record, Washington State, but Washington won the head-to-head and went to the Rose Bowl. USC was 10-2 when they played Ohio State in the 2017/18 Cotton Bowl and lost to go 10-3.
Yeah, yeah. And then then in 19, I believe that the Justin Herbert Oregon team went 11-2, if I'm not mistaken, Mark.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So really, you've had two of the and last year's really an outlier year with the COVID situation and everything that was going on with college football. So, I mean, at the very least, those teams were, at least Oregon, USC in 17. I don't know about Washington in 18, but I know Oregon in 19 and USC in 17 were at least legitimate top 10 teams after they went through the Pac-12. Right?
I think that, the USC and Washington Pac-12 championship teams of 17 and 18 were a bit thin. The Washington team in 16 didn't play anybody out of conference, but, they played a fairly represented playoff game against Alabama, no worse than many of the other playoff games that we've seen. The Stanford team, maybe in 2015, would be the last truly near elite team out of the Pac-12.
Yeah, that was a good team. That was a very good team. And they lost like two close football games, I believe, that year. I know they beat Notre Dame in a great game at the end of the year. And I thought they were playing, remember, they crushed that Iowa team, totally exposed them in the Rose Bowl. And I thought, we're at least, at the very least, a legitimate top 5, top 6 team that year.
I'm right there with you. Yep.
So, I mean, I just say, bottom line, with the 8 teams, you get the 5 conference champions. You would get that one school that's not outside of the Power 5, like a Cincinnati or somebody that could go undefeated. You get them their opportunity, and then you get, 2 at-large teams, which, there's a very good chance that the second place team in the SEC is a top 8 team. Usually it is most years. And then maybe you find a team in the Big 12 or the Big 10 that could flip into that top 8 as well. So, I mean, I think 8's just perfect. I mean, I would just, bottom line, kind of from the outline I just gave you, still looks like a pretty solid bet.
See, I like 12 teams if we could get through the issue with the buys, but we can't, of course, because the math doesn't work. But I like the additional teams being selected and having an opportunity. If we were playing video games and we didn't have to deal with lengthening the season and having student athletes play more football games and possibly playing a 17-week season, then I would be for 16. But my 16 would not be the 16 that most people propose that's based on rankings. I would include all the conference champions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still with, I think 8's the ideal number for what I just outlined. You get all the conference champions, you get the outside non-Power 5 team, and then you get 2, I think, pretty solid teams to finish out 7 and 8. And now, again, I think as we talked about before, there's nothing guaranteeing by expansion we still don't get the same result that we've had the last few years as far as champions are concerned. So I don't know how much, of a different result this is going to produce, Mark. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I don't expect it to produce different results because we're just playing a couple more games. The best teams are still going to just beat up those lesser teams. But the hope from some people, I should say, is that this gets recognized by the high school recruits who then determine that they are able to go to different schools and compete for a national championship.
I would.
I just like it because it affords the opportunity. I don't so much think that there's any issue with Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. Like, I don't hold it against them for holding the rest of the nation hostage. They just have executed recruiting and game planning and development of players better than anyone else for no other reason. It's not like sometimes we talk about them like they're given some kind of an advantage. Like, people talk about those schools like they're given an advantage. No, they have no advantage. They have created their own advantages.
Right. Well, I mean, if you take a look at Clemson with their situation, it took. I think what happened with them is it was kind of a slow, steady climb up, and then I think they got. I actually think getting a generational player like Deshaun Watson was the thing that kind of now kicked them up to another level. They had success with those teams, played in 2 championship games, won a national championship, and then all of a sudden the recruits saw that, and now their recruiting has totally shot up. And they're recruiting at an even higher level than they were, earlier in the Dabo Sweeney era. So I think that's probably the hope with those teams that, get in outside the top 3, that maybe they get that generational player or they get on that run, and then that leads towards, being able to help recruiting down the road for them. The interesting team when it comes to that is like an LSU. They had obviously a great player like a Burrow and had that incredible run in 19. How does that, weigh for them in recruiting down the road over the course of the next few years? That's going to be interesting to see with them, don't you think?
Well, they say for any championship team that the effect on recruiting is felt in the recruiting class 2 years later. So this 2019, they won the championship. This 21 class, actually, that's already on campus and going to play this year, should have been the one that was impacted because those were the guys that were being recruited at the time that they won, where it is the main focus of recruiting. It's kind of during those sophomore and junior seasons for that athlete that the recruiting relationship has the greatest impact. I don't know that this 2019 national championship for LSU is going to carry on for years and years and years.
Right, but I think your point though is a good one. I mean, a lot of high school players probably watch them win that national championship, and one would think that's only going to help their recruiting because it's certainly not going to hurt it. So that is a thing that could sway some recruits. I would think it would. If that's not going to do it, you tell me what would. Other than that.
Well,
obviously you're always going to want.
If it's the goal of that individual player to win a national championship, there's only a few schools in the country that can say we've proven that we can do it, and so LSU would be one of those schools that could say we don't have to theorize. You're not visiting Florida State or Miami or Auburn or Oklahoma even. That can say, we believe we can get there. We believe we can do it. We've got all these great things in place. We've got all these great plans. You can be part of a great build here or even a great tradition, it being Oklahoma, and look at all the success that we've had. But they can't say, we've done it. There's only a few that can say, we've done it recently in the playoff era.
Right.
What it is, it's 4, right? Yes, there's only 4 that can say that they've accomplished.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think with Ogeron, the next few years are definitely going to be interesting to see. Because I don't think they're 2010 Auburn. I know people have made that comparison, whether they just had that generational quarterback and got on that incredible run. I think that he maybe has a chance over the next couple of years to maybe keep this going. But the next 2 or 3 years are going to be really interesting to see how they trend.
And I make that statement about the 4 that can make that comment. Just let me make this comment real quick, David. Sorry to cut you off. That those 4 can make that statement to a recruit. But if the recruit's looking past and looking at that in context, it's really only Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State that can say, yes, we can win a national championship, and we are knocking on the door every year. Like LSU, that really was an outlier. Not that they're not good year to year, but that run all the way through was the outlier.
Right. And they got the generational quarterback performance that year, which is obviously what you have to have too. So I wanted to get to name, image, and likeness, Mark. Question for you is of the two, what do you think will contribute more towards maybe changing the competitive balance of college football, the playoff or the name, image, and likeness? Or do you think a combination of the two could both contribute to kind of helping, maybe even out the competitive balance in college football?
I think that the playoff impact is more predictable. The name, image, and likeness for me is not as predictable.
Okay. That's an interesting point. I mean, let me make this point. I'm not one to always buy into the slippery slope theories that you start one thing and it leads to another. I mean, so a lot of times it does happen, but sometimes it doesn't as well. But to that point, I guess like if you'd asked me, 8 to 10 years ago, would I ever imagine seeing something like name, image, and likeness? I would have said no. Maybe you saw this thing coming years ago down the road. But to that point, do you think, and it's tough to predict the future, I know that, Mark, but do you think that there's any possibility this could lead to down the road of people trying to advocate paying the players?
So the first time that this really struck me as a probability, more so than a possibility, was when Johnny Manziel, when he ran into issues his season following the Heisman season. And I actually had a conversation on here. That was in 2013. I don't know how many people were listening to me, but I actually had a conversation on here about name, image, and likeness, and that I was a proponent of it if it ran through the schools, that if there was a school representative there and it was all contracted and determined through the schools, the agreement went through the schools, and there was some type of compliance involved. In terms of, what was the second part of your question?
Could you see this in any way leading down the road? I don't know. It's tough to predict the future, Mark, but
so I believe in the slippery slope when it comes to something like this, because this is so beyond anything that's been in operation in collegiate athletics to this point that I just think that there are a lot of unknowns headed in our direction about what's fair and who gets what and what percentage, and a lot of things that we haven't even thought about. Just think about how many ills in our society that we were answering questions years down the road that we never determined or we never anticipated. Not even the smartest people anticipated. So money seems to change people and change situations and really manipulate people and do a lot of evil in this world. So money is a powerful force in this world. That's all I'll say. And it makes people do crazy things. And greed, money, power, lust, those things have caused wars and done all sorts of bad things in this world.
Well, I once said, Mark, money is not the most important thing, but I think it's somewhere in the top 5. And, to that point, like we need oxygen to breathe. We need money to eat. We need money to do things. So, until we can find a day we can get around that, it's a pretty important thing in the grand scheme of things. As much as we kind of want to, look at the negativity of it, and there is that aspect of it, and I get that. Just the long and short of paying the players, and I know some people have talked about this in the past, but as the line goes, everything sounds good to a certain degree in general terms, but the devil's in the details. And until somebody can show me an equitable plan and a good plan to pay the players, I'd have to see it. And how it would work, I'd have to see it. And I don't see anybody putting that out down the road. Maybe it will. Maybe they will. But, you know, until somebody shows me a plan to pay these players and how that would work and how everybody gets paid and how you determine it and who gets paid what, of course, you know, I don't think that's a good thing.
What's also difficult to determine, Dave, is it's almost like prohibition. That is this going to clean up the ills of college football? Is this going to just expose everything and make it transparent to, okay, the players can get paid above board. That's going to be a great thing.
Right.
And if the details, and that's not a small point that you just made about the details, because, oh my word,
Right.
I think everybody just is generally, I would guess that 80 to 90% of college football nation is in agreement. In theory, this is a good thing. Let's get the players some money.
Right.
Let's cut a portion of the pie for them.
Sure.
That all sounds great, as you just stated. But
Right.
when you really need to grind down, okay, what does this look like, and what is under this agreement, and what falls under it, what does not, and who gets what, and it's going to be messy.
Sure.
And then beyond that,
Sure.
I don't know if this moves this collegiate sports in the light, or if this creates, if these deals aren't, if they're going to be some lesser good intended or good-willed people that currently have been operating in sports, in collegiate sports for a long time, that are going to convince these players, well, that's not good enough. That's not enough. Why are you settling for this or doing this? That it creates even some down the road black market type opportunities. I don't know.
Yeah, until we see the plan, we don't know whether it's going to be good, bad, or upside down, Mark, I guess. But
and it's such a
as
common.
always, pleasure.
I was just going to say, David, I'm sorry that it's such a common term to use, but it's very apropos that Pandora's box, that once it's opened, that it's impossible to get it back. It's impossible to reel it back in. And so the powers that be better be very vigilant in how they address the unveiling of all this.
Okay. As always, a pleasure, Mark. You take care of yourself.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. Appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. Let's see. We've been on the air for about 90 minutes. We've got about 100 on the line. Thank you so much for that. I hope everyone knows that we're here multiple times throughout the week, not just necessarily for call-in shows, but on our team channels. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, we've got a Nebraska show at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central over on the Nebraska channel. So please sign up for that. And just head on over to our Nebraska channel every Tuesday night. And, of course, we welcome in all of College Football Nation. I think it's one of the unique aspects of our call-in shows and our live streams. And I can tell the reaction, the response from our guest contributors who are just locked in on their particular team. And they run their channel or their site, and they're talking to Nebraska fans, for example, all the time. And then they get on our show, and we've got college football fans from all sorts of different teams chiming in. So it's a little different experience for them because they're used to doing their Ohio State shows or their Florida State shows or their Nebraska shows and only talking to that particular fan base. But we bring in everybody. So please join us for our Nebraska live show Tuesday nights, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. And also then on Wednesday, we do typically Ohio State. We've had to move Ohio State for the past month because of recruiting camps. We've moved Ohio State to Thursday, so stay tuned for that. Thursday at 2 Eastern. Florida State, Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Got another call coming in here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Hello, who's on the line? Uh-oh. Our connection's been lost. I will reconnect. Hopefully we can.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios.
Come on, come on.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
I don't know how that sounds for all of you when this hung up, but this call-in studio, no, it's not. Let's try it again.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios host and enter your 6-digit PIN number. That was an invalid PIN for Ola's show.
Try it again. Come on.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios host and call screen.
Nothing.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios host and enter your 6-digit PIN number. That was an invalid PIN for JT Talk Show Internet Radio. JT.
Why is it not coming through for my show? I don't know. One more time.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios host and call screener line. Please enter your show or meeting number and press. Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Collins Studio web interface.
Those are the same numbers I called like 18 times. All right. We do have a call coming in. Hopefully they are still on the line. I appreciate everybody's patience out there with 100 on the line.
Maybe.
All that dead air, that doesn't help. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Thomas back at you, man.
A second
Navy
call.
Thomas back at you.
You know, Navy
I
Thomas,
want you to do.
this is against the rules, but we're going to make an exception for you.
No, I want to talk about your background.
Yes.
Either add another group of the shelves and put the top 3 teams of take your pick. SEC, Big Ten, choose the Big 12, the Pac Low Life 12, which they belong down in the basement anyway. But no, I'm not sitting there picking on your helmets. I'm just
now, according to your directive here, Navy Thomas, I put up the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12 champions on the top shelf. Is that good?
No.
I thought that's what you wanted.
My best choice for you is to do your video with the whiteboard like you used to do when you originally started, like 200 years ago.
Sure.
I want you to go through the entire system that you used to do.
You like
and
that
then
whiteboard.
I want you to pick in. Yeah. And then I want you to pick into the, for me, I'll say top 4 for your prediction that are going to the end of the deal.
Okay, so you want a prediction video from me? I will give you a prediction video before the season starts, Navy Thomas. Let me get some news out of August camp.
No, I totally understand that. I'm not going crazy here. I'm just saying, Big Ten, SEC, which SEC should be on the top shelf, right? Yeah. And then Pac-12, just put them down in the basement, because they're not going to get qualified. Okay. Which you've done good getting rid of USC, but
I need a Nebraska helmet.
No, you don't need the Western Nebraska there. We already got them coming in anyway, so it's not a big deal. We're stealing them out of Colorado too, so Big 12, they're down to the middle shelf. But I just wanted to throw you the idea at you for the whiteboard. Pick out your, start at the top 10 of the year and give it half the way, and then go shuffle the board behind you with the helmets for the top 4. The Ohio State, you can turn it straight on because everybody knows what that is. OU, you can have to keep it sideways. Alabama, sideways. Gator, yeah, everybody knows that's Ohio State. It's got the red stripe down the head. Yeah, you don't need the Buckeyes on it. Yeah, you can't fix that.
Kent State.
Miami's helmet even has the stripe on the top of their head. Yeah, no, throw that blue can away. That's not going to the bowl. But it's just something I keep watching. I keep looking at your background, and I'm like, man, we got to fix that top shelf.
We got to fix a lot on this show. I know that. I would like to get rid of all of
the
them.
ones that are going to go to the championship. Take that Oklahoma off that top shelf.
Oh,
you're not going to get there.
All right.
Just me, my friend. I wanted to sneak this in at the end of your game. See if I could get it.
All right, we're staying with Alabama and Ohio State on the top shelf. Anybody else?
And you can't put Michigan up there because they're not going to beat Ohio State. Michigan can't beat nobody. So Alabama will be there, Ohio State will be there, and I don't know, reach to the bottom, put up Clemson or Florida State or man.
There's an Ole Miss helmet for you.
No, get that garbage off the screen.
One big helmet I got here.
And dude, here I live right outside Omaha, and I'm looking at the College World Series, and Ole Miss or Mississippi State, hell, I don't know. They're winning. And all these big teams are getting beat down. Just kind of funny at the College World Series. I hope you all are watching it. And it's hot and miserable here, but today's finally cooled off. So
I covered a couple of College World Series way before we knew each other, Navy Thomas. I covered a couple back in, 1997 and 98, 99, something in that range. But that was a long time ago. I've not watched it for a few years.
Dude, I grew up on that, where I went to every game at the Rosenbelt Stadium. And after I got back up here, after I retired out of the Navy, now it's all downtown Omaha. And I'm like, there ain't no way am I going through that, because it just ain't the same. Used to be down in South Omaha, but no biggie. I just wanted to talk about your top shelf. We just got to fix that.
Okay. I'm
or
listening.
add another shelf.
No.
And have another one for SEC, Big Ten.
I would
then go through your whiteboard and then put them up on that top shelf where the top three are. Yeah. You could do top three shelves. You could go SEC, Big Ten, Pac-10.
Can you give me an interior decorator? That's what I need. I don't need any helmets or more pictures or this thing back here. I need an interior decorator who's going to tear it all down and do much better. We need a severe upgrade here. That's what I really need. I don't need a bunch of helmets and shells.
I love your board behind you.
Yeah, I don't like any of it.
I love your old.
Yeah.
I love your board behind you now. That was better than all them pictures that you had before.
Think about this. Yeah.
So
got some college football pictures back there. Yeah. It needs some serious help. But Navy Thomas, I appreciate it. I'm going to take another call here.
All right, my friend. I just wanted to throw that at you from way back at the end of the video. Let's fix that top shelf.
All right.
You be the man after your whiteboard.
There it is. All right. We'll get the whiteboard out.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, Navy Thomas. Navy Thomas always asking for the whiteboard. Wants the whiteboard. All right. Let's get to our next caller here at the Voice of College Football. Let's see who's on the line. I believe it's Ken. Ken, are you still on the line?
Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir?
Oh, pretty good, and thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling.
Yes, I called you 2 years ago, but of course, you didn't talk to a million people. But I had told you that LSU would win the national championship in 2019, and everybody thought I was a fool, but we saw the results. I'm calling in respect to when you look at the 2000s, LSU played 4 national title games. They're 3-1. And everybody continues to put Georgia, Oklahoma, and the like up there saying they're better than LSU, but when they played, LSU beat them and destroyed them, as a matter of fact, and destroyed Georgia. The second 2 times they played recently, LSU destroyed Georgia in Baton Rouge and, of course, in Georgia. All right? They 3-1 in national title game, but people continue to disrespect LSU football when you look at Georgia hasn't won a title in 40 years. Oklahoma hasn't won one in, 21 years. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you know, they always say that they're better programs and they got all these 5-stars, but it doesn't show up when the real games come. It doesn't show up. So this upsets me when people put all these schools above LSU, but when LSU has the better record when it comes to national championships. 3-1 in the 2000s, but nobody ever brings that up. Secondly, I got ULL beating Texas. As everybody should know, this same team is the same team from last year, and they went to Iowa State in the great Brock Purdy, supposed to be, and ULL destroyed them in Ames, Iowa. So I'm taking ULL because they have this pretty much the same team they had last year to beat Texas in Austin, Texas this year. And you know, Mr. Rogers, Texas stand to be 0-2 starting the season because they play Arkansas in game 2. So, but nobody's talking about ULL either on the big stage. But we know what they're capable of doing, and they proved it last year. So the Texas Longhorns better watch out with this UL Lafayette team. If they think they're a joke, they're going to find out they're not. But I'm interested in your voice, where they call you the voice of college football. So I'm ready to listen to what you have to say.
Well, on your point about LSU, I think it's a very good one. LSU, correct me if I'm wrong, because I certainly watched LSU football as well as everybody else from about the late 70s on. So I consider myself to be very well read and informed certainly from the mid to late 70s on. And LSU was pretty marginal for most of that time. They did have some good teams in the 80s. They would pop up with a couple good teams here and there, but basically they barely won 50% of their games for a couple decades there. And then Nick Saban showed up in 2000 and everything changed. They won a Sugar Bowl the next season. And of course, as you mentioned, a national championship in 2003. And over the last 20 years, you are completely correct. Outside of Alabama, LSU has won the most national championships, 3. And the only other loss that they had in a championship game, of course, was against Alabama. And that LSU team, unfortunately, has been dismissed to a certain extent because of that loss. And they may have been more dominant against one of the tougher schedules you will ever see, that 2011 team. I think one of the reasons why Oklahoma's given a little bit more credit is that they, of course, don't play in the caliber conference that LSU does, and Oklahoma's been able to dominate that conference and win championship after championship after championship. Well, LSU has to compete against Alabama and Auburn and Texas A&M, and then on the other side, Georgia and Florida, and it's just flat out a better conference. It's not even close. Georgia, under Mark Richt, consistently finished in the top 10, never got it done. Had shots at it in 2002 and 07 and 2012, but never got it done. Never could get to the big game, but consistently finished in the top 10. He finished in the top 10 8 out of 15 years, and then Kirby Smart has raised the level of recruiting, and we know what Georgia's done since he's been there. They had the one really big season in 2017 where they almost won a national championship. Great national championship game, overtime game. Other than that, they've been a bit of a disappointment with having loaded teams that have finished in the top 5 or 6 in the country, but not getting to the playoff, not getting the job done. So if you're just talking about winning, getting to the mountaintop, there's no disputing that LSU has done that as well as anybody or better than anyone outside of Alabama in the last 20 years.
Right. And certainly I agree with everything you just said, because those are the facts. Those are the truth. You have way more knowledge about college football than I ever have. But again, it's just not your program. I could go, but I could tell you many programs who disrespect LSU, but without the facts. You know, and then when they put the pretty much the same teams every year up there, and then you got, this is another thing that people don't understand, Mr. Rogers. You got Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron, 3 different coaches, and they all won national titles at LSU. But people never say that. They never point those facts out, but those are facts. 3 different coaches at the LSU win national titles. 3 of them. What other school can say that?
Ken, I would say the one thing that
Not
hurts
many.
LSU's, certainly not. Ken, I would think the one thing that hurts LSU to a certain extent is that let's take, let's run through it briefly again. You know, Nick Saban, you know, I've gone through LSU football through the 80s and 90s, and I actually was covering the SEC from 1994 to 2001. So I was actually on the sidelines, in the press boxes, going to the games, the interviews, interviewing the coaches on a regular basis. So I saw a lot of LSU football up close, and it wasn't real good during that time. For the most part. And as you well know, a lot of 6-5, 5-6 seasons through the 80s and 90s. They did pop up and have some good seasons. Went to a couple Sugar Bowls in 1984 and 86 against Nebraska. But again, it wasn't a good 2 decades there in the 80s and 90s. And then Nick Saban shows up. Boom. He sends them to the Sugar Bowl. They win. 2 years later, they win a national championship against Oklahoma. He set up Les Miles in great shape. Les Miles was able to, win that 07 national championship, get back to another championship game in 11. But once 2011, their program was as good as any in college football in 2011. And after that, there was a lot expected of LSU each season, and they kept losing 3 and 4 games. So between 11 and 19, they never lost less than 3 games. So I think one criticism of LSU is that they seem to underachieve. If you take away those championship seasons, most of those seasons are somewhat disappointing. They're not awful seasons. They're not 6-6 seasons, but there's a lot of 9-3, 8-4 seasons in which they had better talent than that.
Right. I agree with you. That is a fact. That's not nothing that's to be refuted. And then, of course, most people weren't around when all that was going on. This modern day football now is the same old people that they put up at the top. Now, let me say one more thing, because I want you to address the ULL program, and my take on them is that they're going to beat Texas. But I don't know what you have to say about it, but I know what the ULL program has and Coach Napier, and they pretty much got the same team they had last year. And you're talking Steve Sarkisian, new coach. The only player I know that's worth anything right now at Texas is B.J. Robinson. But I'm sure they got some other talent, but I don't know who they are. You got Sam Ellinger gone. They had that great wide receiver. He's gone. I mean, I don't know what Texas got, but I'm just saying ULL will give them hell when they play that game in Austin, Texas.
So my thoughts are similar to yours. I know they've got 19 of 22 starters back on that team, and most of their production on both offense and defense. Chris Smith's a really good player at running back. He's back. They bring back all 5 of their offensive linemen, I know, and even some of their key backups. So their offensive line is terrific. Levi Lewis is a good quarterback. He's working to be in a more accurate quarterback, but he was top 3 in the Sun Belt Conference in yardage per game last year. They've got capable receivers like Jalen Williams coming back, Peter LeBlanc. Kyron Lacey's a good player for them. So, their defense, they take away the football. That's one of the big reasons they beat Iowa State and beat them soundly, is they just took away the football. They led the nation in turnover margin and takeaway ratio. And so that's not necessarily a good formula for Sark and for a new quarterback. So you're going to have a new Texas quarterback, an inexperienced quarterback, whether that's Hudson Card, who wins the job, or most likely Casey Thompson. They're going to be running a new offense that they've never run before under a new head coach, and they're going to be facing a defense that's experienced and that takes the football away. Had 16 interceptions last year. So it is a formula for an upset. You're right.
Yeah, you think even with the talent Texas got, they still, even though the game in Austin, Texas, you think Texas gonna beat ULL?
Wow. I think it's going to be a great game. I think that I'm not going to make a prediction right now because I will make a prediction on the game. I always make predictions on all the top 25 games, so I will make a prediction on the game, the week of the game, but I'm not going to sit here and give you a rock solid prediction. But
right.
I think it's pretty much of a toss up.
I do like B.J. Robinson though. I think this dude is a stud.
He is
There's no question about that. Yeah. So I like him, but I don't know what else they have. This was just my thing on that. But anyway, I want to thank you for taking my call. And, I wish people would take it lightly and come up with facts, the facts that I brought up when it comes to LSU football. My thing is, look at the Natties in the 2000s. Now, we got Ogeron last year. He had a terrible team, but he lost so many players, man. It's hard for him to recover. But this team this year is loaded. He's loaded on both sides of football. He has the deepest team he ever had since he's been a coach at LSU. And I look for him to do big things. I got LSU, and this is me. I got them at 11-1. The only loss I see them losing to is Alabama because the game is in Tuscaloosa. But that's my thing is 11-1. They got two starting quarterbacks. I mean, I don't could go on and on, but 11-1 is what my prediction is. 11-1. But I know some people got them at 8, some people got them at 9, some got them at 10. I got them at 11-1, maybe 12-0. That's just my take. But I thank you for taking my call and having this great conversation. And you have a wealth of information, and you're so accurate. I mean, you are definitely the voice of college football.
All right, Ken. Well, thanks for calling. You're welcome anytime. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
I say it does my heart good, more so than anything else on this show, when new people, new callers come to the forefront. Does my heart a lot of good. Great to see. Great to see new commenters in the live chat. Appreciate everybody taking part tonight. We've had a good crowd in tonight for the Voice of College Football. We've been on the line for, let's see, we're over 2 hours at this point, so I think I'm going to shut it down at this point. Nebraska live tomorrow on the Nebraska channel, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Then on Wednesday, we've got the Florida State show at 6 Eastern on our Florida State channel. Meanwhile, Navy Thomas, be happy with me. You say you like some of these rankings and ratings and all the things that we're doing right now. Well, I got to break down 2016. So I'm going to look at the 2016 season and apply the 12-team playoff to the 2016 season. So that's going to come out. We also have a conversation with Steve Merrill from Pro Sports Info on over and unders, Heisman odds, and national championship odds coming up tomorrow as well, right here at the Voice of College Football. And again, Mike 3883 noted that he would like to see a live stream or a video on the channel Vision. So I'm going to deliver that to everyone to give you some insight into where we're headed and what we need to do to get there. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the Voice of College Football. Thanks for dropping by. We always appreciate it. I appreciate you. I hope you always get that I do not take for granted that you are taking time out of your day to spend it with us. So thank you so much for that. As always, see you next time.